Have you ever felt like your own mind is slowly turning against you in the dark? This nightmare actually happened to two close friends at a typical college dorm on campus. John and Michael were just typical normal UCLA roommates, surviving their brutal freshman year together. Everything was totally chill at first. Just standard late-night cram sessions and drinking cheap bitter coffee. But things started getting super weird. Whenever Michael would leave the dorm to hang outside, John stayed behind to study. But the creeping silence started messing with his heavy head. He began seeing twisted, shifting shadows crawling slowly across their posters and the cracked ceiling. At first, John honestly thought he was just tweaking hard from severe sleep deprivation and stress. He told Michael about the creepy whispers he kept hearing. Whenever he was totally alone there, Michael simply brushed it off, thinking his bro was literally just losing it over upcoming midterms. But the intense hallucinations got insanely worse, with John swearing the closet door opened by itself. He saw a pale, stretched-out face smiling right at him from the darkest room corner. John was totally freaking out, completely refusing to sleep and constantly staring right at the closet. Michael came back one weekend, fully expecting to find his roommate just dealing with a breakdown. Instead, he walked into a freezing cold room that smelled heavily, like rotting meat and ozone. John was huddled in the corner, rocking back and forth with his eyes wide and bloodshot. Then Michael actually saw it himself. A tall, twisted figure standing directly behind John's very messy bed. It wasn't just in John's head anymore. The horrifying madness had absolutely infected the entire space. The horror Michael witnessed that night was way worse than anything John had ever tried describing. This thing didn't just watch them. It fed heavily on their sheer panic and raw, unspoken terror. They desperately tried to tell the RA, but nobody believed a couple of stressed, completely exhausted kids. So they stayed, trapped in that tiny dorm, trying to survive the nightmarish psychological torture closely together. But the intense fear took a massive physical toll on John's already weak and severely battered body. One night, the terrifying unseen entity got way too close, whispering something awful right into John's ear. John grabbed his chest in absolute agony, gasping for air as his struggling heart simply gave out. The paramedics said it was a sudden cardiac arrest, but Michael knew exactly what actually killed him. John was officially dead, and Michael was left completely alone with the haunting, terrible memories of him. After that horrible night, those lonely days turning into dark nights were absolute hell for poor Michael. He could not even close his eyes without seeing those ghostly figures lurking right in his periphery. Every single time the AC kicked on, it sounded exactly like John desperately gasping for his breath. Michael started skipping all his classes, securely locking himself inside that totally cursed dorm room for days. The subtle horror madness completely took over, vividly twisting reality into a continuous, waking nightmare for him. He saw John's decaying face violently reflecting back at him in the dirty, smudged bathroom mirror constantly. The walls literally seemed to breathe, and the floorboards would creak heavily under unseen, invisible, heavy footsteps. Michael felt utterly abandoned, completely drowning in a suffocating, endless ocean of terrible grief and supernatural dread. He desperately tried to pack his bags and escape, but the wooden door absolutely refused to budge. The dark, evil entity wasn't done with him yet. It wanted Michael's fragile sanity completely shattered forever. For 3 agonizing weeks, he somehow lived off stale crackers and warm tap water, slowly losing his mind. He would firmly stay up all night, having completely one-sided conversations with his deceased best friend John. His worried parents finally called for a campus wellness check after he ignored their anxious texts forever. Campus police broke down the door, finding Michael frantically scratching very weird, deep symbols into walls. He was loudly screaming about the tall shadow man and how poor John was still trapped inside there. He truly had no choice but to violently drag him out kicking and screaming into the daylight. Michael officially left the massive college midway through his tough semester, completely unable to function normally anymore. His family simply didn't know what to do with his severe, totally uncontrollable paranoia and violent night terrors. So they sadly admitted him into a highly secure mental institution located just outside the city limits. That is where Michael currently lives today, heavily medicated and completely isolated from the normal outside world. But even inside those padded, sterile white walls, the absolutely terrifying hauntings still haven't fully stopped for him. The tired nurses always loudly complain about how the temperature in his hospital room aggressively drops to freezing. Sometimes they clearly hear a horrible second voice quietly whispering back to him when he is supposedly alone. Michael just mindlessly sits there all single day, staring totally blankly at the thick closet door directly. He secretly knows that no amount of heavy medication can ever fully erase the pure evil he witnessed. The severe psychological damage is totally permanent, a permanent scar left by whatever lurked in that dorm. Some naive people claim that stress kills, but Michael knows that the real monsters are always quietly hiding. They eagerly wait in the dark, patiently breaking your mind before they eventually come for your beating heart. So next time you are totally alone in your dark room, please do not stare into the shadows, because if you closely look hard enough at the darkness, something twisted might just start looking right back. And honestly, trust me, you really do not want to see exactly what happens when that closet opens. The horrifying absolute truth is always much worse than whatever scary stuff you can possibly imagine for yourself. If this story stayed with you, please subscribe, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear this. I'll see you soon.